bitches go.
We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Boxing Ego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Oh my God. Canelo Alvarez is about to get stripped of his IBF middleweight title. But wait, there's more. But he's in negotiations to fight Demetrius Boo-Boo Andrade. That is the latest. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Let's jump right into it. We unpack, coming to you live, Boxing Ego Unpack. And very interesting news. So, Mike Coppinger of The Athletic, it says, breaking. Sources tell The Athletic boxing negotiations between Canelo Alvarez and Sergey Derevyanchenko, his mandatory, are now officially dead. Alvarez has been stripped of his IBF middleweight title after 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The deadline came and went. Sides couldn't agree on money. So Canelo was ordered, and you guys got to hit the subscribe button to because I followed this and the latest in boxing, so you'll know what's going on. But to recap, Canelo Alvarez is a champion. He beat Golovkin, and he had an obligation through the IBF. He just beat Danny Jacobs for the IBF belt. He was ordered to fight Derevyanchenko, and they extended. They were supposed to be last Friday was the end all be all date to agree, but they asked for an extension. They still couldn't get the job done. You know, according to this, it looks like they couldn't agree on money. So as a result, the deal wasn't completed. Canelo gets stripped. You know, he had ample time to negotiate with Sergey Derevyanchenko. Says the IBF is now expected to order a middleweight title fight between Sergey Derevyanchenko and Gennady Golovkin, who is the highest rated person behind Derevyanchenko. And it's expected negotiations will go more smoothly per sources. So it looks like Golovkin is going to have to fight him. Now, this is interesting. It says sources tell The Athletic Box that Canelo Alvarez and Demetrius Andrade are now in serious talks for a middleweight unification bout on DAZN. Man, I have so many things to say on this. We unpack. Let me unpack it. I have mixed feelings. This is good and bad. First of all, this is new media, and I've been pushing for the best fights in boxing. One of them is Canelo versus either Charlo or Demetrius Andrade or Gennady Golovkin. These are like the crop of middleweight fighters. You know, you could throw Daniel Jacobs in there. And I've been pushing for the fight. I wanted to see Canelo or Triple G step up and fight either Charlo or Andrade. You know, guys undefeated, momentum, interesting style mesh. So I do feel Canelo versus Demetrius Andrade is a better fight than Canelo versus Derevyanchenko. You know, it means more, and Andrade's a champion. Canelo's a champion. However, I can't just talk on my channel. I got to keep it real. We got to talk about the good with the bad. The bad is the handling of this. I have a problem with the order of operations, and I'm going to break it down in this video, and I'm going to unpack that. Here's why. Canelo Alvarez just fought in May against Danny Jacobs, and he became the IBF champion. Exhibit A. He beat him, became an IBF champion. By August, it just turned August, he's already been stripped of his IBF belt. To me, this stipulates one thing. Canelo and his side, Golden Boy, have been pressured to fight Andrade. So, albeit it is a better fight than the Derevyanchenko, so I have no gripes, no complaints. Good fight. May the best man win if they get it done. It's an interesting stylistic matchup. It's a fair matchup. It's a meaningful fight. But without a shadow of a doubt, this was not their initial plan. And it's evident because the way they went about this is all wrong. Here's why. Again, Canelo beat he beat Jacobs in May to become the IBF. He hasn't even had a chance to, have another fight and defend the IBF belt, and he's already lost it. So that shows me right then and there was no intention to fight Andrade next, because if you wanted to fight Andrade, you could have easily informed the IBF, hey, I'm fighting a fellow champion for undisputed. I'm fighting Demetrius Andrade, so I won't be able to fight Derevyanchenko. But the the game plan clearly wasn't to fight Andrade, because they could have just easily told the IBF. And we know that a unification, especially for undisputed, supersedes any mandatory, right? So if Canelo's team and Golden Boy really and truly wanted to fight Andrade, not be pressured and, running out of options, and after failed negotiations with all these other people, if they wanted to fight Andrade from the jump, they could have done that, and they could have done it and made it more meaningful. Now, if Canelo fights Andrade, still a good fight stylistically. I'm not complaining about that. Again, it's the order of operations. Now, if Canelo fights him, he doesn't have the WBC, which I'm going to talk to you guys about, and he doesn't have the IBF. So it'll be the WBA champion versus the WBO champion, when it could be an undisputed colossal fight. Horrible. It's like Avengers and the Infinity Stone and Thanos. Canelo had the opportunity. He's the A side in boxing. He's the man. He could have pulled any of these strings and made these decisions and did it in a certain order, in a certain way, where his profile would have been preserved. And I just think it's a bad look that in the end, it sounds like you still may have to fight Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade. But if you would have did it on your terms, you wouldn't have had to worry about being the franchise champion, and you wouldn't have had to worry about, failed negotiations with Derevyanchenko, failed negotiations with Kovalev. All these things were not a good look. Also throwing out names like Jaime Munguia, and then DAZN publicly saying, hey, we're not approving Canelo versus Derevyanchenko or Canelo versus Jaime Munguia. You got to fight someone we want. So this whole situation, the whole business behind it, and picking Canelo's opponent has been very messy, and he's been made to look bad by this. I really believe that, because he could have easily just picked Andrade, like I had been saying from the beginning, new media. He could have just picked him on his own accord. It would have been a great fight. Nobody would have complained. It would have been a once beaten Canelo versus an undefeated Andrade. They're both aligned with DAZN, and they're both aligned, like schedule wise, because Andrade just fought. Canelo let so much happen. Like, here's an example. Canelo, he says, I'm Mexican and it's meaningful to my heritage. He begged for the Mexican dates while Floyd was still fighting. Floyd retired, and then he, even though he lost to Floyd, he inherited. He's like, I'm now the biggest star in boxing. Plus, as an added benefit, I'm Hispanic, I'm Mexican. So this is a meaningful fight for me and for my people, and I'm taking over the date. Now you just gave up the dates. So there's been a slew of different things that have hurt Canelo's brand, and it's just really poor planning. Another thing was the franchise champion. If he wanted to fight Andrade, if this was really their plan from the beginning, and he wanted to fight Demetrius Andrade, then guess what? He didn't even have to become the franchise champion. That wasn't a good look, because he could have told the WBC, I understand Charlo is my mandatory. I understand that. But I won't be able to fight him because I'm fighting this man on the screen, Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade. So that lets me know that they've really been pressured by new media, and they've just been pressured to make certain fights, and they've been left without options. That's why. So it doesn't change the fact that it's a good fight, but it could have been a bigger event. It could have been a fight for undisputed. If Canelo, he let the WBC basically strip him, and he let the IBF strip him. The franchise champion is basically being stripped, because now all of a sudden he has no mandatories, and he gets elevated to this mythical category that had never been established previously, right? It didn't even have to be all this. If he wanted to, he could have said, I'm fighting Andrade, IBF. Hold off on the Derevyanchenko because I'm fighting for undisputed, baby. WBC, hold off on ordering the Charlo fight because I'm fighting undisputed. But this wasn't the game plan. They were looking at Kovalev and Jaime Munguia and Derevyanchenko, maybe even Caleb Smith. I don't think they really wanted to fight him like that. And these things didn't work. So now all of a sudden, he's left at square one, which is fighting the guy that new media told him to fight to begin with. It should have been an easy fight to facilitate. Andrade undefeated, calling out Canelo. He said, where are your cojones? He called Canelo the B word previously. You're both aligned with DAZN and John Skipper on the same platform. Canelo, his last 2 fights since being with DAZN have been with Eddie Hearn. You know, Canelo versus Rocky Fielding, an Eddie Hearn fighter. Canelo versus Jacobs, an Eddie Hearn fighter. Canelo versus Andrade would be an Eddie Hearn fighter. So you've already worked with Eddie Hearn on a promotion for your last 2 fights. This was a no-brainer, and they found a way to lessen the actual impact of the fight. This could be a fight for undisputed. That's horrible. You could have had the WBC, IBF, and WBA, and then been fighting in the IBO and been fighting the WBO champion for all the marbles. And this is what Canelo said he wanted to do. So I'm not a fan of how they handled this. Oscar De La Hoya, Golden Boy, Team Canelo, Chepo, Eddie Reynoso, whoever. I'm not a fan because this lessens the impact of the fight. Canelo said to ESPN Deportes that he wanted to become the man. He wanted to be undisputed, the first Mexican middleweight undisputed champion. He had the opportunity to do that. He didn't follow the protocols and parameters. He could have told the IBF, yo, I'm fighting Andrade, so I won't be able to fight Derevyanchenko, and they would have got out of the way. He could have told the WBC. But they came up with this franchise title, looked horrible. They had all these failed negotiations that were public, looked horrible. He gave up the Mexican dates because he needed more time, looked horrible. All this for you to, in the end, maybe even have to fight the same person, which is Demetrius Andrade, which is the person that new media wanted you to fight and that I've been saying, and you should have just did that from the beginning, and then you wouldn't have looked bad at all. You would have just been fighting Andrade. So I think this is just a bad look. It's a good look for as far as fight fans and for a fight if they can get this fight accomplished, but it could have been so much easier. Andrade won his last fight. You know, it's not a good look how they went about it. Any way you slice it, because you took a fight that would have been undisputed and then came up with this franchise title, gave up the Mexican dates, had failed negotiations with several fighters, got stripped of the IBF today at 3 p.m. Eastern time, and then now you're coming back to the table for Demetrius Andrade. All that when you could have just picked him from the beginning. So that lets me know right then and there, this wasn't their first choice. This wasn't their initial game plan at all. Because if it was, then you would have done what was right from the beginning, and none of this failed Kovalev and giving up Mexican dates would have even occurred. Now, it's also a bad look for DAZN because it's a two-way street. Again, new media have been pushing for this fight, saying, hey, this is a great fight for boxing. Great fight for fans, you know, but it's a bad look for Golovkin as well, because he's going to probably have to fight Derevyanchenko, and it's a similar situation. Last year, Canelo failed a drug test with the clenbuterol. He explained why he had the failed test and all that shit, but he got suspended for 6 months. Golovkin was then undefeated and he's champion. He was informed that he had to fight Derevyanchenko if he's going to keep that date. Golovkin opted to not fight Derevyanchenko, to fight Vanes Martirosyan, who had switched promoters. He was coming up in weight. He only had 2-3 weeks to promote or to prepare, and he was coming off a loss to Erislandy Lara. And Golovkin chose a 54-pounder instead of fighting Derevyanchenko. Then he chased Canelo when Canelo came back, got stripped of the IBF, so the Canelo Triple G rematch was without the IBF belt, you know, when it could have been all the belts except for the WBO, which Billy Joe Saunders had, which he failed a drug test, and now Demetrius Andrade, as you see in the picture, has. You know, so all this stuff has been sloppy. It has been real sloppy. So back to Triple G. Triple G, he should have just fought Derevyanchenko to begin with, because now everything comes 180. You're just back where you started. Everything has come full circle, and Canelo, he's probably going to fight or been pressured to fight who we told him to fight to begin with, but he's doing it for less belts and with all this other stuff that causes his profile to take a hit. And same thing with Triple G. Triple G, he swerved the Derevyanchenko fight because he didn't want to lose out on the Canelo fight, and he didn't want to take nothing too risky. But in the end, you're probably going to have to fight him again. That's what it's looking like. So I think the way both parties, DAZN, and then both camps, Triple G and Canelo's camp, went about it, they just made themselves get painted in a bad light for no reason when you should have just handled business from the beginning and there wouldn't have been no complaints and nobody would have been raising the eyebrow. Canelo's the A side. He could easily say, hey, I'm fighting Andrade, and Andrade has been wanting this moment, you know? But now he did it his way, poor planning, and he didn't notify the IBF that he was fighting Andrade. He tried to negotiate with other people like Kovalev and Derevchenko, and then all of a sudden, when those things didn't work out, now he goes and advances, and now he's back to square one, which is Andrade. You know, he really doesn't want to fight Golovkin for whatever reason in a rematch. In my opinion, I think he wants to age Golovkin out a little bit. He wants Golovkin to live in his shadow and just look bad, you know, fighting the Steve Rolls of the world and lesser events. Like Golovkin versus Derevchenko could be a tough fight, but it's still not a big fight, just like I said with Canelo versus Derevchenko, you know. So I really feel like Canelo, Andrade, at the very least, despite the belt and the, you know, the politics and the way they went about it, I think that's a better fight. I think it's a bigger fight. So I'm happy for that reason, but disappointed in the same token, if I'm being honest, because it didn't have to be done under these terms. And then we could have established an undisputed creme de la creme of the middleweight division. No need for the franchise title. You know, Jamal Charlo wouldn't be elevated to full WBC champion. We wouldn't have to worry about failed negotiations and Jaime Munguia not getting approved, Kovalev negotiations failing, and he's fighting Anthony Yard, and then Derevchenko negotiations, and that failed. It's just all over the place. And to me, it doesn't look like there's structure. We went from Canelo being rumored to fight Jaime Munguia to Triple G being rumored to fight Jaime Munguia. He's a 54-pounder. Why are we talking about 60-pounders fighting him? Now they're talking about Jesse Vargas' fight. It doesn't seem like there's no direction. Now Jesse Vargas is talking about fighting Jaime Munguia. You know, you had Canelo rumored to fight Jaime Munguia, Caleb Smith, Demetrius, Andrade. And I'm like, ooh, Andrade, that makes the most sense. Easy to fight. Then all of a sudden, Kovalev, who's a top-ranked main events fighter and been fighting on ESPN. We're like, where did this come from? And that didn't make sense. Why is a 160-pound and a 160 and a 168-pound champion talking about fighting at 175? Then when that failed, Kovalev ends up fighting who he was supposed to be fighting to begin with, Anthony Yard, his mandatory. And the Canelo Kovalev fight has to wait. Canelo gives up his Mexican date, you know. And then the Derevchenko fight, they asked for an extension, still can't get it done over money. And now you back at square one, fighting or negotiating with the person that new media told you to negotiate with from the jump. So it's very sloppy. Same thing, like I said, with Triple G. Triple G should have fought Derevchenko last year. And then now you looks like you about to fight him anyway. So bad look. And it shows like it's just like aimless and it's like all over the place, really messy, in my opinion, how they went about this. Canelo said he wanted to be undisputed. He could have done that. If he doesn't want to fight Triple G, that's fine. He didn't have to be elevated to the mythical franchise champion. He should have just he should have announced to the public that he's fighting Andrade, and then he could have postponed fighting these mandatories. But that lets me know that that wasn't their game plan and their first choice, but they're running out of options. DAZN wants a big fight. That's the point blank to it. They want a big fight, and as a result, they're only willing to approve certain fights. So all that stuff was made public. So this just isn't a good look. Here's another thing with the Derevchenko fight. Canelo, when he was supposed to fight Derevchenko, they were trying to attack DAZN publicly. You know, these are the rumors that they were trying to attach Triple G like, hey, we'll approve Derevchenko. We really don't want to approve Canelo versus Derevchenko, but we will. But you got to fight Triple G after that. And then look at this update. As part of the Triple G no longer being tied to the Derevchenko approval, industry sources say Canelo Alvarez agreed to take less money than his guaranteed $35 million purse from DAZN. So basically, DAZN's, it looks like they want certain fights. They want Canelo to fight certain fights, and they're not willing to pay what everyone thought. So Canelo basically don't have guaranteed money. That's what that boils down to, because they said, all right, fine, we'll approve Derevchenko, and you don't have to agree in advance to fight Triple G, but we're not giving you $35 million in layman's terms. You know, so just the brain power it just looks real sloppy on behalf of DAZN and every party. And it doesn't look like they're all on the same wavelength. And again, new media, I told you, is something different. It's powerful. And I just feel like when you do what's right for boxing and do right by the fans, everything else falls into place. And they could have made this a lot more seamless, and they would have looked better in the process, but they went about it a certain way. Now you have Charlo a champion, you have Canelo being stripped. It's just all over the place. And we could have had more closure as fans by seeing an undisputed champion, but not following certain processes and not making these decisions quicker and opting for options A, B, C, and D, all to come back to what should have been the original option, which is Andrade. You know, it's just, this whole process has been a mess. Let me know what you guys think. We unpack, we working. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.